It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Picking Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by this hilarious, argumentative, animated man, Tom. How are you today, Tom?
I'm doing good. I feel like getting into an argument, making some jokes, talking about some fights. Listen, we dive into these fights. We look at these fighters. We watch their fights. We see, kind of break down some past fights that they've watched. Some other people talk about them. Try to get as much of an idea about these fighters, especially on the undercards, as we can. And a lot of people have been talking crap about the UFC cards, both the Aspen Lad card, or we're on the Aspen Lad card, right? Or no, we're on the Paulo Costa card. Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori. People are talking shit about this card. People talk shit about the Aspen Lad card. Listen, I think there's some sneaky good fights on both of these that a lot of people aren't privy to. And like we're saying, here at Picking Fights, we like to put the knowledge back in fighting. So we're working on kind of our tagline. So next few videos, you might hear us come out with a couple different taglines. Maybe down the line, we'll stick with one.
If you have an idea for a tagline too, like you got anything funny out there, let us know in the comments down below or add us over on Twitter. And also, while you're there, make sure that you're liking and subscribing to our channel. You may have noticed that we are no longer just picking fights. We've incorporated Picking Winners, the entire brand, into this YouTube channel. So we've got football videos. We've got our Picking Six. That's our football show. And we're also going to have Picking Corners coming soon when the PLL, Professional Lacrosse League, comes back. So make sure that you're liking, subscribing, going over to our website, pickingwinners.org, and you're following us on all of our social media channels, _Picking Winners. So with that being said, you are right. We do have the Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori card. Anybody who's been a longtime fan, some of our friends out there have been watching this for a while. I'm a bit of a Marvin Vettori fan.
A bit.
And to be honest, I couldn't even tell you why. I don't know.
You think he's aggressive. You like his weird scream, looking like the dude from the Goonies.
Yeah, I like how stupid he is too. Like I like when he put his pants on backwards when he was going to fight Izzy the last time around. But there are certain things I respect about him. I respect his activity because how long ago was that fight against Izzy? That was what?
Not too long. We're talking 3-4 months ago.
May, I think that was in May. So I respect his activity, and he's still constantly trying to work his way back up there. He's ranked 5 in the middleweight division. He's going up to fight Paulo Costa, who is somehow still ranked number 2. So I respect a lot about Marvin Vettori, and I love how stupid he is. So
the fight against Izzy was actually September of 2020 to show you how quickly time flies. But what you might be remembering is he had a fight with Robert Whitaker January, February, April, in May that got canceled, and then a fight with Jared Cannonier in August that got canceled. So he's kind of been forced to wait out due to some cancellations and fights. But his last time we saw him in the ring was a year ago, or in the octagon, should I say, September 26, 2020 against Izzy.
Paulo Costa you're talking about?
Yes. Oh, you were talking about Marvin Vettori, weren't you?
Yeah, I like Vettori's activity. Yeah, his fight against Izzy was back in May, I think.
June, you're right.
June, yeah. So I like his activity. Paulo Costa, I lost a lot of respect for him after he became Izzy Adesanya's baby mama. Anybody out there, go look up that viral clip. Disgusting. How do you let that happen to yourself in an octagon? I don't understand. But with all this being said, listen, you got to understand this card is pretty good. And if we're doing our job, then we are going to sell this card to you as well as help you to, break your bookie off of this one. So, we're going to jump right in now with our prelim locks. I've got a good one. I got one that, some of you people at home, if you do know the UFC, you might be looking at me like, huh, what? But I got Tabitha Ricci versus Maria Oliveira. Tabitha Ricci is -210. Oliveira +175. I really like Tabitha Ricci in this fight. She, at least from what I've seen, has a way better ground game than Oliveira. She's really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and, she's won the majority of her fights in the LFA by decision, using her ground skills to just dominate and garner some control time, which really does weigh heavily in women's fights. but she does also have a couple of submission wins, mostly coming by way of armbar. So this is only her second UFC fight. It's also Maria Oliveira's first UFC fight. But Tabitha Ricci fought Manon Fiorot, who, you know, at this point, when you're watching this, fought last week. I hope she did well because we both picked her. But Manon Fiorot, she's really good. And Tabitha Ricci, she went in there and, listen, she got knocked out, TKO'd in the second round. But against good competition in her first UFC fight, she looked good. She came from the LFA, which is essentially like, you know, in a way, a minor league organization for the UFC promotion. And then you look at Maria Oliveira, she's coming out of Ryzen, which Ryzen is, you know, they're picking up some steam now because of Yuri Prohashka, but Maria Oliveira is no Yuri Prohashka. Tabitha Ricci, on the other hand, I like her to just get on top of Maria Oliveira for 3 rounds for a total of 15 minutes, garner up at least like 10 minutes of control time. If not, finish it by submission. But I really think she's going to win by decision. I like Tabitha Ricci. Good parlay bait at -210.
Yeah, I like Tabitha Ricci a lot. Looking at Tapology, 87% have Ricci, 60% of those by decision, 13% have Oliveira, 79% of that by decision. So I think he'd probably be a safe bet to take this one to go the distance. That being said, you know, ground fighter in Tabitha Ricci, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know, she's only 5-1, so pretty green, but she's only 26 years old. She has been kind of around the block a little bit as far as, you know, her jiu-jitsu and her MMA skills. Her first official MMA fight was 7 years ago, but the next fight after that was only 1 year and 1 month ago. So she's definitely been a lot more active as of late. And then, you know, look at Maria Oliveira, looking at like some of her past competition, not in the same caliber of a promotion as the LFA, still fighting people who are what we consider, you know, cans with records of 0-0, 0-1, 1-3, 1-5, you know, 13-12, you know, outside the UFC, outside even really major promotions. That again, we talk a lot about this. What is your level of competition and how you've done against them? What does that say about what your coach thinks of you? So again, first fight in the UFC, I think it's going to be a step up level of competition for her. Tabitha Ricci, I think it's going to be a step down level of competition for her coming off of the Manon Fiorot fight. I think even though she did get knocked out, I think it does bring a little bit of confidence, being like, okay, I've been here. It's my second time. I kind of know how it goes. The whole whirlwind of emotions as far as being in the UFC, your first UFC fight, that's over. I mean, it still may carry over, but I think Maria Oliveira is going to have just a lot more to deal with going into this fight. So I agree with you. I'm picking Tabitha Ricci. I think that's an undercard lock. I'm also going to pick Jeff Molina over Daniel Lacerda as my prelim lock. Jeff Molina, El Jefe is his name, fighting out of Missouri, 24 years old, 69-inch reach, standing at 5'6" tall. He is on at least a 5-fight win streak. This will be his, well, do we count Contender Series as a UFC fight? Not really, but kind of. It's kind of like a half UFC fight. So he got a win against Jacob Silva, 6-2 unanimous decision a little over a year ago on the Contender Series. Comes back around 5 months ago, gets another unanimous decision win. So he's proven that he can do it in the UFC against at least that entry level competition. We look over at Daniel Lacerda and his past competition. This will be another first UFC fight for him. His last win was coming 2 months ago. It was a TKO over Rodrigo Sarafian, which is he's 20-11. Going beyond that, his fights, he got a submission armbar 2 years ago against a guy who's 13-12 in a promotion that I don't even recognize. Same thing, different promotion, triangle choke 2 years ago. This guy was 4-2. When he goes up against a guy with a solid record, 9-2, he did get injured, but he also got officially a decision as TKO'd in that one. That's 2 years and 6 months ago. And then going back, he has a win over a guy who's 6-4. So just not a high level of competition from Daniel Lacerda. I think it's going to be a big step up going up against Jeff, who's, you know, been in the UFC now. He's got the Contender fight. He's got a win actually under his belt. Looking at Tapology, 86% have Molina, have him by decision. Loretta only 14%, kind of split evenly between decision, TKO, and submission, which shows that I think a lot of people just don't know about him or who he is. That being said, I really like the ability of Jeff Molina here to go in there and to get it done, to overwhelm Daniel Lacerda, be in his face, use his chin. The other thing that's hard to tell if Daniel Lacerda really has power or not, or if he can just precision and knock guys down, if those guys have really good chins or not. So there's a lot of unknowns with Daniel Lacerda. I think we know a lot about Jeff Molina. Barring a big upset, I'm picking Jeff Molina. I think it's pretty safe. Looking at best fight odds, I'm not even sure if they have this one. They probably do. So, Keith, what's your thought on that while I try to find the odds for this?
Well, I will tell you what the UFC opening lines are for that fight. Minus 150 in favor of Jeff Molina, plus 130 for Daniel Lacerda. And you know what, dude, with a nickname like El Jefe, come on, man, that's enough to want to pick somebody alone. The only way that he could do better is probably, being that his name is Jeff, if he went with my name is Jeff. I think that would be pretty funny to hear John Anik say that as he was weighing in and Jeff. Yeah, my name is Jeff. That would be pretty funny. I would love to hear that. But I do like the Jeff Molina pick. I think it's a safe pick, but I'm not going to touch this one personally. I do like the pick, but being that there's unknowns about Daniel Lacerda, it does kind of make me a little bit shaky on it. That's the main concern for me here. It's a little tough because, being that he does have those knockouts on his resume, he wasn't really at a promotion that you recognize, like he said, so it's not like he's fighting the best guys out there. But is he some sort of magician where he knows exactly how to hit the off button? We're going to find out on Saturday.
All right, cool. I have one more, and I think you might push back on me about this. I'm taking Lavina Souza over Randa Marcos. And I'm doing this for a couple reasons. Randa Marcos on a 4-fight skid. Actually, her most recent fight, which is technically a loss, you may remember it, against Luana Pinheiro. And that was right around the same time, and not totally around, but not too removed from the Aljamain Sterling disqualification, knee to the head, and then him, claiming to be the champion. And then now we see him kind of, some people think he's running away. Some people think he's doing his due diligence. So, there's videos of him out there, or at least pictures of him, what seem to be hard sparring. So I think a lot of people around the UFC and the MMA community have a soft spot for people who maybe get hit with an illegal maneuver, illegal strike, and decide, I can't continue, and maybe they could have. I think MMA, martial arts, UFC, I think there's a code where if I'm going to step in the cage to try to hurt another person, and that's really what the sport is, it's who can give up last is usually going to be the winner, and you choose to take your win by giving up. I think that's not really going to sit well with a lot of people around the community. I know it didn't sit well with Randa Marcos, so a little hesitant. She may be coming in here looking to really get revenge. But here's the sticking point for me with Randa Marcos. You go into that fight, this is your last fight if you don't win, and you put yourself in a position to have it taken from you by an illegal maneuver. Say what you want about Peter Yan, whether he knew, he didn't know, you gotta know. Tom Brady throws an interception. He can't go, I didn't know that he's allowed to do that, or this. Negligence is not a good, it's not a good excuse. And I don't like that from Randa Marcos. I know she got the shit end of the stick, but you still gotta know. That being said, she's 10-11. She's been around the UFC. She's 36 years old. She's aging up there too. Liviana Souza, 14-3. She's pretty good on the ground. She has a submission win, a guillotine over Alex Chambers. She's got a couple losses in her last 5, but ultimately I see her, she's got a nice win over Ashley Yoder. I see her being able to get this fight to the ground and try to win by just kind of overpowering Randa Marcos. Randa Marcos, nicknamed Quiet Storm, and I think it's going to be probably pretty quiet, and I'm going to go with Liviana Souza on this one. Looking at Tapology, 84% of the votes are on Souza by decision. Randa Marcos, 16%, 81% by decision. So it's seeming like a lot of these fights, or at least these prelim ones that you and I are highlighting, Keith, seems like a good bet. If you don't want to bet on actually the person, it seems like you could probably make a decent amount of money just betting on overs for the rounds.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that that's the really smart pick here because it is going to be a quiet, dull fight. As much as I like Randa Marcos and her red hair, I think it's pretty cool. Throwback to like the, when you were a kid watching what was that one show, iCarly, whatever, the one with the red hair. That hair is just cool. It's a cool color,
right? Didn't Sam have red hair at some point, or no? She's blonde.
Oh no, it was Ariana Grande. Red hair for years and years.
Yeah, that was Victorious. Oh, but she was in Sam and Cat too when they did the crossover iCarly show. They brought iCarly back, by the way.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's any good now.
It's for adults, so they like drink beer, but
what?
Kind of curse, but it's the same setup. It's terrible.
Is that guy Dan Schneider still running the show?
I think so. I think it's him. I think it's Miranda Cosgrove. It's the Spencer. I think Spencer's in it. Freddie's in it. But Sam is not in it.
Interesting. Well, I digress. I like the pick here. I think it's smart to bet against Randa Marcos at the moment because, yeah, she is on a big skid. It sucks because, like, I do like her, and I think that there was a time in her career when she showed a little bit of promise, but now it's almost like, she's done. Like, she's done in the UFC. It's pretty much how how it's going. That's the story at the moment. I think, kudos to Dana White and, whoever's signing contracts over there for letting her stick around and giving her an extension after that unfortunate, mishap the last time around against Luana, can't say her last name.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Good on them for doing that. But, because she is a bit of a mainstay at this point, but, I don't want to bet against Randa Marcos, but I probably will. It's how it's going. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, her last win was in 2019 against Ashley Yoder, which is a decent win, but her opponent also has a win over Ashley Yoder, and it's, I think, a lot more recent. So, just looking back at Randa Marcos's opponents, I mean, Luana Pinheiro, she beat herself. Kanaka Murata, she lost to Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Hebas. I mean, these are all people with records 8-1, 8-1, 8-1, 11-1, 8-1. Now she's going on a 14-3. I just haven't seen it from Randa Marcos that she can beat somebody who's of substance. Ashley Yoder was a 7-4. She got the win over her, but then turn around. Ashley Yoder has gone on and hasn't been all that impressive after that. She loses to Randa Marcos, loses to Liviana Souza, beats Miranda Granger, but then loses to Angie Hill and Jinyi Frey. So, it's not like a win over over Ashley Yoder is blowing people away. So, yeah, I think it's probably going to be a boring fight. I think it's probably going to go the distance. I think, Souza's probably a safe pick, maybe Souza by decision. But if you want to, just be ultra safe, I think you could probably get away with the Marcos fight going the distance. I think you could probably get away with the Richie fight going the distance.
Yep.
And there's probably, I'm looking here, I'm thinking the Staropoli fight may also go the distance too.
Yeah, the way that he fights, he's just that same type of guy. I mean, I hate to say he fights like a woman because that's unfair, but like his fighting style in terms of trying to win by decision by clambering over somebody on the ground and, laying on them like a blanket. It's not really entertaining, but, that's how a lot of women's fights are judged. And a lot of women tend really not to go for a finish. They really want to win by decision and win by the points. And it looks like Staropoli tries to win the same way.
And honestly, Jamie Pickett kind of wins the same way, having a lot of decisions too. Really, the only ones that don't end a decision for him are the ones where he gets TKO'd. So,
yeah.
At least
I think that that's a safe pick as well. I am actually going to go with Laureano Staropoli, and that one is another one of my prelim locks too, just because of the way that he fights. I think he fights smart, and it's just the fighting style of winning by points, by takedowns, striking when you can, not when you have to, and avoiding those situations where like you're getting a lot of shots landed on you, and especially on your chin. He's a smart fighter, and saying he fights like a woman is not a knock on women at all. It's just how those
different styles, a different approach. And not every woman fights like that, but there's a vast majority of women who approach the fight to win on the cards and try to be more technical. I don't know why that is. And there are some people who don't. I mean, look at Aspen Ladd. She goes out there and they say, hey, third round, you need to win this fight. She goes out there and she finishes. I was looking at the weigh-ins. Like I said, we record this on a Saturday. So the Aspen Ladd fight yet to happen. So we don't know what does happen. So we may end up with the egg on our face for 2 videos straight. Just kind of the nature of the beast with how we're doing these now, but it is what it is. I looked at the prelim weigh-ins, and Aspen Ladd looked very solid for that division. Just Ariel Helwani quoted on it, what a difference 1 or 2 weeks can make when somebody cannot stand on the scale trying to hit a certain weight, and they come back at a weight that's much more healthy for their body. She's fuller. She can talk. She can, have conversations, which she was definitely not in a position to last go around. So I think she's going to go into this fight. And I like how she looks going in. We'll wait to see, how rehydrated Norma Dumont gets and see maybe she's bigger in the cage. But at the end of the day, we know that Aspen Ladd has that finishing ability, and that's something that not every woman has. And for whatever reason, and I think it's fair to say that Laureano Staropoli, at least as far as we've seen in the UFC as of late, doesn't have that finishing ability and is going out there to out technique and outpoint you and try to beat you on the judges' scorecards, which is certainly a way people can win fights. But Colby Covington does it, but Colby Covington punches you in the face hard.
Yeah. So don't go trying to cancel us and saying that we're bad people all over Twitter and stuff like that. Don't just clip it down basically. And
we went through a whole 5-minute, back and forth over, what fighting like a woman sometimes may mean. And, I'm sure we're not popular enough, but if we were, somebody would be clipping. So let's get all of our potentially controversial vernacular out now while we can.
Yeah. And that was very well said, Tom. Way to, CYA cover our asses. That was very good. So I got no other prelim locks for you. Do you have any other prelim locks?
No, I want to get into this first fight in the main card. We got Dwight Grant taking on Francisco Trinaldo, I can't really say the ageless warrior. We're seeing a lot of people fight well into their 40s now, but 43 years old, only a year and a half younger than Tom Brady, and this guy's going out there in mixed martial arts fights. Keith, what's your thought on this one?
I actually like Trinaldo in this one, and I understand he's old. 43 is pretty old, but he's fighting Dwight Grant, who's also 37. So it's not like the fight that we're going to see, after this video has already come out with Carlos Felipe and Andrei Arlovsky, where the age gap is a lot more disparaging there. These two guys are only 6 years apart in age. And by some fighter standards, 37 is still pretty old. But what stands out the most to me about Francisco Trinaldo is that up until like early this year and later last year, he's getting wins over guys like Bobby Green and Jai Herbert, who, we saw Bobby Green against, who was that, Rafael Fiziev, going out there and banging. So for him to get a win over Bobby Green in particular, that really does speak to me a lot. So, I like it, it's a decision win over Bobby Green, and Bobby Green is a guy who is like basically matrixing under like every punch that you're going to throw at him. So that means that Francisco Trinaldo can get his hands on people, bring them to the ground, land shots on guys that move around a lot. He still shows some good speed at 43 years old. And I do really actually like him here. I'm going to check out what Tapology says and if they agree or disagree with me. Actually, I'm looking pretty good here. 69% voting with Trinaldo on this one. I'm going with the old man. I'm going with Francisco Trinaldo, and it's mostly just because of his recent fight history and, that he's shown us that he can still do it at 43 years old. What do you think? Yeah,
Trinaldo's kind of good everywhere. He's solid enough on the feet to beat solid feet competition. Even still, he's, kind of able to, if he can last long enough and you don't KO him or put him out, he's able to kind of understand where your weaknesses are in your fight. And by the second or third round, start to kind of exploit those, while at the same time still staying safe. That's really a sign of like a really good fighter IQ on the side of Francisco Trinaldo. And at 43 years old, that's actually probably where the majority of your abilities are, or your leg up on any competition is probably going to be with your fight IQ when you get up to that age. That being said, his most recent loss, or he has a loss against Alexander Hernandez about 2 years ago, which doesn't look like a bad loss, especially when you consider that he probably won that fight. That fight was in Texas. It was in the home state of Alexander Hernandez. It was an iffy decision. And, sometimes in combat sports, it kind of just goes the way of the tide. And I think that one's probably a win for him. So this guy's, really coming in here 27-7, I guess you could say it. But here's the thing for me, the sticking point. Every fight has been at lightweight, except for his most recent fight 4 months ago against Muslim Salikov, when she was not able to hold his own on the ground. As he got older, as the fight went on, you could tell he started to gas out a little bit. Dwight Grant, he's a kung fu guy, kind of like Kevin Holland. He's got a solid jiu-jitsu base. He's a powerful puncher. He's kind of been underwhelming to this point. You can kind of get two Dwight Grants. You may get a Dwight Grant that comes out there and is exciting and, starches people. You may get a Dwight Grant who comes out there and is boring. And that's really going to be the deciding factor here. Is Dwight Grant going to come out and, really try to put away his 43-year-old opponent? Or is he going to try and be safe because he's nervous about the fight IQ and try to keep a distance? He's a solid striker. He's got the BJJ background. He's also, a UFC vet. Like I said, either crazy fight or boring. I can't even read. I need to start writing. He needs to be more consistent, which is, something that I was talking about. He's actually very, very good at range, and he's not kept down on the ground for all that long, all that much. So I think Francisco Trinaldo might have a difficult time keeping Dwight Grant on the ground. And I think Dwight Grant in space where he can land power punches is going to be the deciding factor if he comes out energized and exciting. I think also as the fight goes on, it kind of favors Dwight Grant a little bit more. Like, granted, he's 37 years old, but 37 maybe on the end of your prime. You could still do well at 37. 43, it's really, really difficult to continue to get wins, to go up in a division. And, that's another thing you have to remember here. They're fighting at 170 pounds. Francisco Trinaldo, for most of his career, fought at 155. So now you're 42, 43 years old. You're going up a weight class. You had already lost to a good grappler. Now you're going against a striker. Like, I know Tabology's not feeling it with me, but there's something about this. Also, you just look at the overall size. I mean, Dwight Grant is 6'1" to Francisco Trinaldo's 5'9". He's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage in the cage if Tapology is correct, for a guy who's a distance striker and a power puncher at that, against a guy who's 43 and not sure where his chin is currently. He loses, he's been in some wars over time, but ultimately I'm actually going to go with Grant because he's a little bit younger, he's longer, he's taller, he's more used to the division and the weight. He's a volume thrower, punches with power from distance. He has the ability to not be held down for too long consistently. And I really think that's Trinaldo's path to victory, is to kind of win while on the ground in a top position. I just think with all of those disadvantages, size, weight, I mean, that's another thing too. If you are a wrestler or a grappler style and you want to win and your path to victory is holding somebody down, you don't want to have a size disadvantage. You don't want to have a reach disadvantage. You don't want to be against a guy who's a really good distance striker, because then it's hard to get in on him. So for all of those reasons, I'm going with Dwight Grant.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one to pick for sure. And I think we both have very sound logic on this. We both made really good arguments. What it most comes down to is what type of version of Dwight Grant comes out on Saturday night. I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind here. So next up, we got Alex Caceres versus Seung Choi. I'm going with Seung Choi. And,
Sting.
Huh?
Sting.
Yes, Sting. Good nickname. I like it. He displays, it's another guy, we were just talking about good fight IQ. He's another guy that has good fight IQ. Relatively green in comparison to Alex in the UFC. Alex is a mainstay in the UFC, but I like Choi's fight IQ going back and watching him across different promotions beforehand and even now into the UFC. When he scores a knockdown, he doesn't just immediately go for the ground and pound. He looks, he has won a few by ground and pound. Most notably against Julian Erosa, but he also has a knack for trying to wrap a guy up, look for those submissions, just really be smart down there on the ground, which you don't see a lot of fighters do. You see a lot of fighters go for the ground and pound finish and then exhaust themselves while doing it. I think his stamina management is very, very sound, which is going to be important against a mainstay guy like Alex. And, he's riding a 4-fight win streak over guys like Chase Hooper and Kevin Kroom, who, they're not like the top of the division. They're not the best featherweights out there, but they do carry names for, different reasons. Chase Hooper mostly because of his social media activity and just being a funny guy and saying Ben Askren is his dad. But I really like Choi in this one. It's going to be a really good fight. It's going to be a really strong technical battle. Another thing I really like about Choi, is that he's got power in his hands for a featherweight guy. So if he ends up catching Alex Caceres, it's going to be a tough night for him. So I don't know. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on this one because, again, it could go either way just because of the experience that Alex brings to this fight. But I really like Seung Woo Choi to overwhelm Alex on the feet. And then eventually when it does go to the ground, just be smarter and, maintain stamina and use that good fight IQ that I was just talking about better. So I'm going with Choi. What do you got?
So I'm actually doing just a little bit of research here. A guy who Alex Caceres beat when he was on the Contender Series 2 years prior to that. He had beat Giga Chikadze.
Alex did?
Alex beat a guy who 2 years prior to Alex beating him had beaten Giga Chikadze on the Contender Series.
No.
Austin Springer.
Giga Chikadze is also a guy that's developing very quickly, and I think that we're starting to see him turn into an MMA fighter, not just a kickboxing guy anymore. But quick side note, go ahead.
Quick side note. Listen, I think Seung Woo Choi, Sting as we'll call him, has some really good wins in the UFC. His only UFC loss, I think he has 2 UFC losses, both to really quality opponents. We're looking at it, Gavin Tucker 10-1, Moisar Evloev 10-0. So if you're gonna have those 2 losses inside the UFC, I really can't blame you. I can't blame you, and that's just kind of it. He's also got really good wins in the UFC. He's got a KO win of Julian Erosa, left hook to ground and pound, like you alluded to. In that fight, he's actually the first one to bring the Paddy the Baddy hairstyle to the UFC. If you go back and watch it, he's got, very long hair that's, brushed down blonde. So, maybe Paddy owes Sting some monies. But, he's got wings over Youssef Zalal, some pretty solid competition wins and even good competitions in his losses too. Like you said, he's got really good power in his hands. He's got a strong hook. He's patient, but not boring. He's polished. He's technical. I really like Sting. I like his fight. I like his fighting ability, especially when it comes to a stand-up fight. Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres. I do like that nickname, Bruce Leroy. He's wild and he is a very, very solid striker, but he does leave a lot of openings. And, I went back and I watched some of his fights in Miami-Dade County on their YouTube channel. These back ring fights where literally they'll get thrown into the ropes and people will just push them back in. And he's a guy who went out there and choked out his competition. Bruce Leroy, like I said, wild, good at striking, but leaves opening. He likes to kick. He likes to throw big punches. He's not known for his power. He usually when he wins, he's winning by decision. Sometimes he can get by sub, but he's also lost by many subs before. There's just not top level competition for him as far as his wins go. Besides really Chase Hooper, and then you'd have to start digging into, well, this guy beat this guy and he beat him, and sometimes we like MMA math, sometimes we don't. Generally, it just depends on how it's going to affect our argument. In this case, I don't like MMA math. I've just seen a lot more from Sting that gives me confidence than I have from Alex Caceres. He's taking a lot of damage. He's been in a lot of fights. The guy's 18-12. He's 33 years old, eventually going to get up there in age. 33 is a little bit older for the 145-pound division, so maybe, he'll move up to 155 at some point. But nevertheless, I'm going to have to go with Sting because I don't think this is going to go to the ground. If it does, I think he has the ability to get up. I don't think Alex Caceres wants to bring it to the ground. I think it's going to be a standing battle, and I think Sting is going to catch him.
Yeah, Sting is definitely the pick here. Just too smart, too fast, too physical. So next up, we got Nick Negumereanu versus Ike Villanueva. Sorry, Nick, I definitely butchered your last name.
Nicolae and Negumereanu.
Negumereanu, okay.
It's actually fun to say once you get it. Negumereanu.
All right. Well, listen, these are two light heavyweights, and they like to stand and they like to bang. That's the two things that I noticed about both of them going back and looking through. But Nick Negumereanu is definitely the better of the two in this matchup. They both got extremely strong hands. He's riding, let's see, out of his last 5, he's got 1 loss, and Ike Villanueva, 3 losses out of his last 5. So he's 2-3 over his last 5. Another thing I like to take note of is that Nick Negumereanu is from Romania, and guys from that region are really just they're savages out there in the octagon. He's 10 years younger than Ike Villanueva, and I think that this is one of those times where that age advantage will take effect, especially with these big boys, because like I said, they stand and bang, and as you get older, your chin does have a tendency to fizzle out there a little bit. So Ike Villanueva does have a disadvantage going in there against a strong big boy in Nick Negumereanu. They size up kind of similarly. Ike Villanueva, 1 inch taller, but Nick Negumereanu actually has a 5-inch reach advantage. I'm going with Nick Negumereanu, but my favorite prop on this entire card is, I have a few on this fight. Nick Negumereanu to win by knockout, and for this fight to not go the distance. I can't imagine that those odds are going to be, spectacular. Like, if Vegas is as smart as they usually tend to be, it'll probably be minus 400 for this not to go the distance, because they know that these guys like to just stand and swing. Nick Negumereanu looks like he's fighting in a closet, just close quarters, old school, stand up, bang, close, like in your face type of guy. But I like to not go the distance, and I really like him to win by knockout. That's not to say that Ike Villanueva doesn't have a chance to win this. He's got 10% of the votes coming in on him to win by knockout. I mean, to win this fight, period, on Tapology. And it looks like 99% of those are by knockout. So Ike Villanueva does have a chance to catch Nick Negumereanu, but I really like Nick Negumereanu. Plus, he is just like a more sound, all-around better fighter too. So on the off chance that this does go to the ground, he actually has some decent ground skills to, possibly wrap up a limb. But I really think that this is going to end by knockout. It's going to be a finish in this fight. It won't be a boring fight by any means. I'm going with Nick Negumereanu, and I'm taking him by knockout.
Yeah, and it can't be a boring fight when both of these guys want to walk forward. The knock on Ike Villanueva, 2 things, is that he made it to the UFC probably a little bit late. I think he made it to the UFC around 34, 35, 36 years old. Now that he's 37, it's just really hard to gain any momentum for, a long period of time. Lucky enough for him that, he's in the light heavyweight division. Maybe he goes up to a heavyweight and he can compete till he's 41, 42. But, still, no matter how you want to slice it, he doesn't have a lot of time left as far as UFC goes. And then especially compared to Nick Negumereanu, light heavyweight at 27, that's basically like being 22. Like, he's not going to wow you, but he does have effective forward pressure and stand-up game. But he came to the UFC too late. He absorbed a lot of damage in his last 3 losses, and really his win inside the UFC against Moreira 9-4, a TKO to overhand right, didn't really tell us much. These guys, they're light heavyweights, they're heavyweights. They're going to have KO power. You're going to be very, very hard pressed to find a light heavyweight or a heavyweight who doesn't have the ability to KO somebody. Maybe not starts them right away, but definitely drop somebody, be able to finish them with ground and pound. And that's what we've seen from Mike Villanueva in the UFC. Outside of that, we've seen him lose, most recently, 3 months ago, Marcin Prachnio, TKO from a body kick. A year ago, Jordan Wright, KO, doctor stoppage. This guy's getting messed up. Chase Sherman goes out there, KO, TKO, elbows and punches. So he was up at heavyweight. He moved down to light heavyweight. So, I'm not liking the career trajectory from Ike Villanueva at this point. And then conversely, Negumereanu, former heavyweight, lost by a decision to Will Knight. Kind of got dominated by Safareg Safarov, which is a terrible, terrible, terrible look. Because Sarapik Safarov is just not a good UFC fighter, and there's no two ways about it. And then when you can just go and get dominated by him, that's not great. His past opponent's record combined is 37-81 for Negumereanu. So again, not great. This guy, he's aggressive. He's got a judo throw background. He's got a good wrestling and wild striking. He doesn't mind getting hit. He'll just take a punch and then keep walking through it. Not really yet to see him get KO'd. So, at 27, at 205 pounds, he probably has a pretty good longevity left in his chin. But like I said, solid punches in his last fight against Kamer. Kamer was, Alex Kamer is actually one of Stipe's training partners. So that's really good too. I mean, sometimes these training partner fights don't end up being what we think they are. We think, oh, he trains with Stipe, oh, they trained with Amanda Newton. Like, they're going to be really good. And sometimes they don't. But nevertheless, if you can go out there and get a decisive victory over somebody who is in the gym every day with Stipe, I think there is something to be said about that as it compares for, your talent level. So in conclusion, I think Nick's going to win this one either by decision or a TKO in the second round. He throws hard hands. He walks forward with reckless abandon. He's just always going to come after you. He's got a very good chin. He's got a solid, it's not a suspect ground game. Let's just say that, just in case. But I don't see this going to the ground. I think Ike is going to want to stand up. I think Ike being older. I think Nick having more power, having more, just kind of, well, not even kind. So this is only his second fight in the UFC, but yeah, I like Negumereanu in this one, just like you do, Keith.
Yeah, my favorite prop of the night is going to be Negumereanu by knockout. So next up, we got Jessica Rose Clark versus Joselyne Edwards. Tom, what do you think about this one?
Well, Jessica has my heart and my pick in this fight. Jessica Rose Clark, an Australian fighter. She has actually gotten a lot better as of late. She's had some struggles in some of the last few fights. Mainly, she took a loss against Jessica Ai, also took a loss against Pani Kniziad. Both of those fighters are not doing terrible. They're definitely stalwarts in the division, and they're making their presence known. But here's the thing you have to remember. Those two girls are in two different divisions. And I think Jessica Ai was just, not a good size matchup for Jess. And then she goes down. She's now fighting at the 135 division, or moves up to Penny Kniziad fighting at the 135 division. And she talked a lot about having issues going into that fight. She had issues with her visa to get there. There was issues with her coaching. I think she said that she was hurt too going into that. She was coming back from a broken foot. So there's a lot of things that went into that Penny loss. But then she was able to, she talked a lot about, going to therapy, getting her mind right, being more vocal with her coaches, and having a more of an open relationship where they know like how she's feeling, and so they can better coach her at times. She talked about going into the Sarah Alpar fight, in which she knocked that girl out with a heavy knee twice in the third round. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there with Chris Tognoni and the ref. It was her butt down when she got kneed in the face. The girl was sliding down. It was really, really hard to tell. But either way, Jess knocked this girl out once in the third round, and then when the fight resumed, knocked her out again. So I really, really like Jessie Jess. I like the mind space and the fighter she is now. I think she's got great elbows. She's got great knees. She's a very, very good stand-up fighter. She throws heavy shots, walks forward. She's a very, very interesting fighter. We're talking about some people who have the ability to finish and some don't. She's a stocky girl at that. So the fact that she was trying to make 125 is ridiculous. She was talking about how, she would not even be able to enjoy her life outside of fighting because she's like, everything I eat is going to affect me on the scale. So now that she can be 135, enjoy life, be happy. She only has a 2-inch or a 3-inch reach advantage here. A product of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Las Vegas with Eddie Bravo. I like everything about Jessie Jess. I even down to her face tattoos. I think they're awesome. Looking at Joselyne Edwards, she's a stand-up fighter without KO power. She's a decision fighter in the UFC up to this point. She lost outside of the UFC to Sarah Alpar, the girl that Jessie just KO'd twice, most recent, just about a year or so ago. Again, these Australian fighters are having a difficult time getting into the UFC with visa issues and things. So this is her first fight in a year, but it's also Joselyne Edwards' first fight in 8 years after a unanimous decision loss to Carol Hossa, who we've seen go on and do pretty solid things in the UFC with her most recent wins. Edwards hasn't finished anyone with really good wins in the really. She hasn't finished anyone that's ever made it to the UFC. Let's just put it that way. And Jessie Jess has. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I think Jessie Jess has all of the advantages when it comes to a stand-up fight. And for those reasons, I'm picking Jessie Jess.
Yeah, I really can't follow that up. I mean, you summed everything about this fight up perfectly. I'm going with Jessie Jess, Jessica Rose Clark. The face tattoos, yes, love them. Gorgeous. Accent, great. Excellent. Great fighter. Joselyne Edwards, I don't think that she really has a chance. I mean, it's kind of crazy that these odds are so close. Jessica Rose Clark opening line -130, +110 for Joselyne Edwards. That was to open. I can imagine that as people start to see this, people that know UFC a little bit, those lines are going to move. So if you're watching this early in the week, snag that. Drop it in there right now responsibly because anything can happen in a fight. But -130, that's a steal. Absolute steal. I think that the fact that Joselyne Edwards hasn't fought in so long really speaks volumes. That's like the most important thing to look out for here. But Jessica Rose Clark, lock it in. I'm taking her. That's about as close to a lock as you can get.
Yeah, it's looking like Joselyne Edwards fights just about every year to 8 months. And I get it, being 26 years old. Actually, I don't get it. Being 26 years old when you're young, you're going to want to fight as much as you can, gain that experience. Now that she's in the UFC, this is going to be her second. This will be her third UFC fight. She's 1-1 in the UFC. I just think Jessie Jess has the ability to rise into that upper echelon in the 135-pound division. Obviously, I don't think she has any chance against Amanda Nunes, but I think she could definitely find a good niche in, maybe that, 8 to 4 range right now. And I just don't think Joselyne Edwards is going to be able to match that. Especially not with, when you're 26, not fighting all that often. I think, you really get better at something by fighting, and, sparring can only go so far. And either way, yeah, I really like Jessie Jess in this one. I'm going to be pulling for her hard. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to lock that in like a sharp, like today. So next up, we got a lightweight fight between Grant Dawson and Ricky Glenn. I'm going with Grant Dawson in this one. I just think he's just an all-around better fighter than Ricky Glenn is. I mean, in all aspects, he has wins coming in all different manners: decision, knockout, submission. It could come for him in this fight in any different manner too. And I think that the odds really speak volumes to that. He's -300 going in here, and he's really smart too. We put a big emphasis on fight IQ. I think that is one of the most important things for Grant Dawson going in, is that he's a smart fighter. And, he's really well-versed on the ground as well. And, he has wins over guys. We mentioned Julian Erosa before. Good win over him. Good win over Derek Minner. And he gave Leonardo Santos his first professional loss. So I'm going with Grant Dawson in this one over Ricky Glenn. I can't really see a path to victory for Ricky Glenn, and I can see multiple paths to victory for Grant Dawson. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Let's start with Ricky Glenn. Ricky the Gladiator Glenn, former World Series of Fighting champion. He had actually major hip surgery prior to, so he had one fight, and then prior to that is when he had his hip surgery. You look at it, lost to Kevin Aguilar in about 3 years ago, and then his most recent fight was only about 3 months ago. So, he came out, did look solid, left hook, finished the fight on the ground over Joaquim Silva. So, pretty solid, but Silva was also away for a while before that fight. Silva got caught by Ricky coming in, kind of was stunned. Maybe it was because of the layoff as to why Silva, got stunned. So, I mean, I'm not trying to, I guess, create excuses or reasons as to why Ricky Glenn won that fight. I guess that's almost exactly what I'm doing. But the way you look at it, I don't think Glenn can put people away. Granted, Silva, but coming off a long layoff, this, that, ring rust, the other thing, just kind of gets caught. He doesn't seem like a guy who's, he's a technical striker. He stands in the pocket. He lands volume. He does have solid takedown defense. But I think when you're going to compare power, especially at the 150, we were just talking about light heavyweights, everybody has power. Everyone can put you away. At 155, that's not always the case. I think Ricky Glenn probably can if circumstances are right and kind of things swing in his favor. But going up against KGD Grant Dawson, I don't see how he wins, kind of how you said. Grant, he's 27 years old, so just entering his prime, whereas, Ricky Glenn, 32, maybe towards the out. It's hard to tell with primes, but he may be, kind of leaving his prime as well in the 55-pound division. Grant Dawson's a shorter guy, but he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's got a few wins at 45, but he was kind of weighing in closer and closer to the 150. So this is going to be, one of his first few fights actually fighting at 155 and being able to be a little bit bigger, which I think is going to help him. Not having to cut so much, I think is definitely going to help. He's got great ground and pound, great submissions. He's almost Khabib-esque. I'm not exactly sure what the KGD stands for his nickname, but maybe it's Khabib Grant Dawson. He's got pretty solid power, but not great boxing. He can be clipped, he can be clipped on the way in, or if he's like strictly striking too much, but the guy, he causes a lot of ground, a lot of damage on the ground. And I think what we're going to see is I think he's going to go in there. I think he's going to, maybe play around on the feet with Ricky Glenn for a little bit, but I think ultimately what he's going to do, he's going to try and push him up against the cage. He's going to try and get him down on the ground. He's going to shove his forearm into his face. He's going to make it uncomfortable. Grant Dawson has a really, really aggressive ground and pound style where even when he's not punching you, he's still wearing you out and he's still tiring you, where he's shoving his forehead, his forearm or his elbow into your forehead, into your eyes, making it hard to breathe, covering your mouth, with his hands or his arm. It's these little things that, people who maybe haven't rolled or haven't done MMA don't necessarily notice, but there's a big difference between someone who's going to lay on you and stay in side control and every so often maybe just give you a backwards hammer fist to the side of the head. You can kind of take those, but if the guy's going to be laying on you, even if he's in your guard or if, wherever the situation is, he's constantly covering your mouth. It's harder for you to breathe. He's elbowing your side. He's punching you in the head, turning around. He's shoved, kind of just messing with your face. It gets really, really difficult, especially when you don't have the advantage on the ground. If he has the advantage on the ground and he's doing that to you, it's really, really difficult. And that's why we saw a lot of things that we happen with Khabib. So that being said, I think Grant Dawson is going to win this one handily. I don't know if it's going to be worth betting on by the time, our video comes out. And what you see the lines are right now, Keith, what'd you say? The lines are, minus 30. So yeah, if you can. So here's our dilemma with recording these about a week out. Sometimes they don't have the props for the fights out yet, and you can't bet on them. So do I want to bet on Grant Dawson minus 330 in a parlay? Probably. But if I'm going to take it straight up, I'm not taking him minus 330 and have to bet, $100 to win 30, bet $10 to win 3. It's not enticing. It's less than 3. You'd win 2 something. So it's not really tickling my fancy. I would, if you could get Grant Dawson, probably by a TKO, probably prior to the second round, in the first or second round. I think that is probably a pretty solid pick for you to pick on this one straight up.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, dude. It's going to be overwhelming for Ricky Glenn. It's going to be a tough fight for him. And I really like Grant Dawson to finish this. And another reason that I say that too, that I like Grant Dawson to finish it, is because the UFC has done a good job of especially with these fight night cards, saying, okay, a lot of guys don't know these names. A lot of fans out there don't know these names. So what can we do to draw more attention to these fight night cards and to these names? We'll put a co-main event before the main event, who typically people do know. I mean, everybody knows Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori at this point. Let's put a fight that we know a finish is going to take place in to draw eyes to these fight night cards, make it entertaining, give people something to tune into. So I think that they're lining that up with this. They've severely outmatched Ricky Glenn here because they know that Grant Dawson is going to take advantage of him. And at the very least, it's going to be a mauling. And I think that that's really smart by the matchmakers and the people lining up the card to set this up as the co-main event. Give people a finish. Then maybe next week, someone who, say you had a little fight party or you had a couple people over at your house and that fight was on in the background, you might have just made a new fan either of the UFC or of a guy like Grant Dawson. So I think it's smart on their part just to set themselves up for the future. Anyways, we're on to the main event. We got Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori. If you listen to my little spiel in the beginning, I'm a big Marvin Vettori guy. Don't know why. He's stupid. He gets trashed on social media by everyone from fans to current fighters to commentators like Paul Felder. I did agree with Marvin Vettori. If you saw that a few weeks ago saying that Paul Felder is like one of the worst commentators out there, Paul Felder makes me want to mute my television when I'm watching him talk. But anyways, Marvin Vettori, the biggest thing that I like for him going into this fight is the fact that he's way more active than Paulo Costa. He's got the mentality of, I lost another championship bout. I need to work my way back up, stay active. He's going up to fight another big name in the middleweight division. And the other thing, too, is that he just got out of a 5-round fight a couple months ago. His cardio is there. We saw it. I mean, yeah, he tired out a little bit against Izzy, but he was also trying to do a lot against a guy who, I mean, they call him the last style bender for a reason, bro. Like, he's going to work you for 5 rounds, and Izzy doesn't get tired. Marvin Vettori had to work at an incredibly fast and high pace for 5 rounds to even stay. I mean, he wasn't really competitive in that fight, but to stay like active and I guess competitive in that fight, to make it like something worth watching and something, where he felt like he was putting out a good effort the entire time. So he's used to those 5-round bouts. And I really like his cardio going into this. I really like his activity. I don't like Paulo Costa's inactivity over the past year. I think he said last time he fought was September of 2020. So that's over a year out. I think Marvin Vettori just has the mindset nowadays. And, funny enough, though, even if he does lose, say it's by decision, he's going to tell everybody he beat Paulo Costa all over every media outlet for the next 2 years to come, because that's just what he does. But I really think it's a good stylistic matchup. It's a really good, two good fighters in the division. They match up very well against each other. I just think the biggest thing going for Marvin right now is his activity and the fact that he's been in his last 3 fights have been 5-round fights, I think, because he fought Izzy Adesanya 5 rounds, Kevin Holland in a main event before that for a fight night, 5 rounds. So, he's used to this. He's got this level of cardio and stamina for this type of fight, and I don't see that coming out of Paulo Costa. And I could also see Paulo Costa drinking wine the night before like he did when he fought Izzy Adesanya and coming out like a drunk slob and just getting demolished. At the very least, Marvin Vettori is still working on his wrestling and drags Paulo Costa around the ground like he did with Kevin Holland, like he attempted to with Izzy. Every time he took Izzy down, Izzy escaped every single time and was smart, got back to the cage. I don't think Paulo Costa is that smart. His wrestling is definitely better, where if Marvin Vettori brings him to the ground, he might be able to escape, might be able to switch positions and get on top. But I think that Marvin Vettori is still consistently improving, and he's just in better shape right now. So I'm going with Marvin Vettori. He's coming in at -140. Paulo Costa +120. I'm going with the Vegas favorite here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going Marvin Vettori. And looking at Tapology, 60% say Marvin Vettori by decision, 60% say Marvin Vettori, 71% of those by decision, 40% say Paulo Costa 72% of that by KO or TKO. So it seems like we're going to get a Marvin Vettori decision or a Paulo Costa finish. That's kind of in line with who these guys are. Paulo Costa, when he fought Yoel Romero, I mean, it was a Yoel Romero fight later in his career. There wasn't a ton of action, but Paulo Costa was able to get it done by decision. Then he turns around, he fights Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya didn't have a very interesting fight with Yoel Romero. Turns around, fights Paulo Costa, starches him in the second round. And Paulo Costa made a bunch of excuses and didn't look good in that fight. Maybe the adrenaline had gotten to him, but now he takes a year off. He's going to come back against Marvin Vettori, a guy, who had fought Israel Adesanya and looked very solid there. I think he probably did he win a round? He may have taken one round, maybe 2 rounds from Izzy.
Yes.
Izzy definitely won a unanimous decision. He had 3, maybe 4 rounds, but, Paulo Costa didn't have a single round. He didn't win the first round and he got pieced by Izzy and lost in the second. I don't see Marvin Vettori as a guy who is going to get TKO'd. I don't see it in him. 28 years old. It's not like he's old and maybe he's old. He's been hit a lot and that's going. He's got good stamina. What was he going to say?
I was going to say too, he's like the type of guy, like a Shane Burgos type of guy. Just, that's the example everybody knows, where when Marvin Vettori does get hit with those shots that should put anybody to sleep, he's so crazy and aggressive. He doesn't let himself go to sleep. He doesn't let his body shut off. So my bad. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, all good. And that's a good point. Some people just don't allow themselves to get shut off. I think it's some type of air of crazy in you for sure. It's definitely not something that sane people can do. But we've never said Marvin Vettori was a sane guy. I mean, we talk about him, yelling from the Goonies, wearing his shit on backwards. He's just kind of a goober. And he got outclassed by Izzy, as much as you may or may not want to admit that he did. But I'm not as convinced that if this does go to the ground, that Paulo Costa is going to be able to get on top. I think Marvin Vettori might even have the advantage on the ground. I think Marvin Vettori probably has the advantage on the feet, being able to go 5 hard rounds with Izzy Adesanya on the feet and trade blows. I think he definitely has it on the feet. I think he's probably, he's got a little bit of a reach advantage. I don't know, something about me similar to what you say, Keith. My gut's telling me Marvin Vettori. I don't see him losing here. I see, Paulo Costa coming out definitely looking better than he did against Izzy, but I think this is going to be a decision win. I think Marvin Vettori probably takes it 3-2. I don't think there's going to be one that's so gross. Maybe one of the final rounds, maybe is a 10-8 if Paulo Costa gets tired. Because like you said, his only 5-round fight was against Yoel Romero. And that's now 2 years ago. So either way, I'm taking Marvin Vettori. I'm thinking Marvin Vettori is going to win by decision. And it's probably going to be a 49-48, 49-47 win. Maybe 48-47, 40. I don't know. My math may be off there, but I think Marvin Vettori is going to win probably 3 to 4 rounds. I think it's going to be competitive, but I think Marvin Vettori is going to be clearly the better fighter.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Excuse me, I sneezed. I muted myself for a second.
Oh, good. I was impressed with that.
Yeah, quick timing. So yeah, I think we're both agreeing on Marvin Vettori for the same reasons. And, I was just trying to give Paulo Costa a little bit of credit when I said that there's a chance that he could switch positions and get up on top. Chance, it happens. Anybody has a chance, a fighter's chance. That's it.
Yeah, and I've watched, a handful of videos. Hey, shout out James Lynch. We're trying to get him as a guest for one of our upcoming UFCs. But James Lynch does great videos, fighter interviews. And then, a week, 2-3 weeks before the fight, he'll put out, MMA pros pick from all of his interviews and what the pros thought about the fights. And going through his video, I didn't really see much confidence behind Paulo Costa. A lot of the guys who picked Paulo Costa, they would, the reason that they gave, I didn't see for myself. And, at the end of the day, I'm sure a lot of them have more almost all of them, or almost definitely all of them have more fighting experience than I do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, they're going to pick correctly all the time. So I just don't really see how Marvin Vettori wins. I think he's the much better, well-rounded fighter. I think he's, one of those guys that's got that weird switch in his head that he's so crazy. He's not going to allow himself to go out. I don't think Paulo Costa has the technical striking ability to outstrike Marvin Vettori. Like, listen, if Izzy Adesanya can't put out Marvin Vettori, I don't think Paulo Costa is going to. That being said, I think Paulo Costa is going to have the technical advantages in technique and skill and ability, because he's been doing this longer, to push Paulo Costa up against the cage if need be. I think he's going to probably have an advantage on the ground too. Maybe it's even on the ground, but I don't think Marvin Vettori is going to be so at such a disadvantage on the ground to where he's, just at the mercy of Paulo Costa. So I see him maybe even on the ground, better on the feet, even or better in the clinch. I don't see how Paulo Costa wins this one. I'm taking Marvin Vettori. And just real quick for me to run down all of my picks, starting with my prelim locks. I have Laureano Staropoli. Definitely take that one to go the distance. I have Tabitha Ricci over Maria Oliveira. I think that one will go the distance. I have Jeff Molina over Daniel Lacerda. That one may also go the distance, but I wouldn't bet on the distance, but I do like Jeff Molina a lot. We have Souza over Marcos. Take that one to go the distance. Dwight Grant over Francisco Trinaldo. Seung Woo Choi over Alex. Bruce Leroy Caceres. I like Nick Negumereanu over Ike Villanueva, and I like that one by finish. Jesse Jess over Joselyne Edwards. I like that one a lot. Grant Dawson over Ricky Glenn. I like that one by finish. And I like Marvin Vettori over Paulo Costa by decision.
Yeah, the only one.
You muted yourself, Keith.
Can you hear me?
Hear you now. You're low.
The only one I disagree with you on is Trinaldo.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Another week of me saying who I'm picking and Keith basically just saying, yes, I agree. So it's all right, buddy. It's okay. Follow me to the promised land. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Pick and Fights. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think of our picks. Let us know if you think we're doing a good job, a bad job, if we should kick rocks. Check us out at pickandwinners.org. Check me out on some blogs I'm writing at overtimeheroics.net. You could also check out some of the other Pick and Winners crew on Men of Order. Check us out at various places. We're growing. If you want to be a part of a contributor, if you have something to say, if you want to be a part of a podcast, have an idea for a blog or betting picks, some sports, make sure you reach out to us. Our handles are below. That's Pickin' Keith. I'm Pickin' Fights Tom. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.